From the Sunshine State, this is Tampa Bay's Fan Talk.
It's time for FLALAW, brought to you by the personal injury attorneys of Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes. This hour will be informative, along with taking your questions and comments. Now, here are your hosts for today's show.
Good evening. Welcome to today's episode of FLA Law on the Radio. I'm your host, Matthew Noyes, with the law firm of Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes, one of the first personal injury law firms here in Tampa Bay, and proud sponsors of FLA Law on the Radio. We are live every Tuesday evening from 5 until 6, and after the show, we post our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. So if you wish to join us today, though, there are 3 ways to join us. And one way is to call us live and have your question or your comments addressed right here on the air. You can call us at 727-441-3000, or you can jump on our Facebook Live page at the law, and the Facebook page is Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes Injury Lawyers, and we can look at your comments and address your questions and comments right there from the Facebook page. And the third way is jumping on our YouTube channel as well, and that's Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes Injury Lawyers as well. Perenich is spelled Perenich, and Ed on the other side of the glass will be happy to let me know that you posted a comment on our YouTube page, and we'll be able to address that as well. So there's no way you can avoid getting in contact with us. So we are here to guide you through the maze of not just the law, but other areas, because returning as my guest today is the man who is often the first to report stories around Tampa Bay so you can stay informed and safe. And that's Stephen Hirschfield. He's the creator of IONTB.com or IONTB.com. Stephen's site and Facebook page has kind of become like a digital town square for emergency news in Pinellas County and beyond. So over the next 50 minutes, we're gonna learn more about Stephen and on Tampa Bay and talk about a few of the issues recently posted on IONTB.com and how they can be used as learning lessons for better driving habits, including an article about a tragedy that occurred up in Pasco County where a road ranger lost his life by simply trying to help people. And another story about a motorcycle accident in Newport Richey that also claimed the life of a young man. Time permitting, we're going to talk about other things. Steve is going to put on his other hat because not only is he a pro at all that, he is also very involved with emergency management. So if we have time, we're going to flip over and talk a little bit about hurricane season. I know it's hard to believe it's hurricane season right now, but as we've always said, it only takes one hurricane, so we have to be prepared for that. So, Stephen, if you're ready, I'm ready. You ready?
I am ready.
All right, let's go. Let's dive in today's episode of FLA Law on the Radio. So, Stephen, why don't you reintroduce yourself to those that have heard you before on FLA Law on the radio, but also the new listeners?
Yeah, so started IONTB, stands for ION Tampa Bay. Sat around 13, 14 years ago and try to figure out how I could blend my photo work, my video work, my interest in news and breaking news and kind of married that all together and started this IONTB site. And it started as a kind of a tribute to the men and women in our first responders. That was taking a lot of photos, a lot of video, and not only were they interested in seeing themselves at work, but their family members, their loved ones,
sure,
were really enjoying it as well. It was a little tough early on to try to get some followers. I remember begging my mom, go ahead, join Facebook and add my site to it. And now I haven't even looked, 230,000 maybe on Facebook alone. Approaching times, I think I hit 48 million views on Facebook alone in 1 month. Website, a few million as well. So become pretty commonplace and popular and recognizable as putting that breaking news out there. A lot of it having to do with the traffic and fires and not so good stories. But like you said, as my other hat and some of the other work I do as a fire and life safety educator is trying to whatever I could do to educate and try to hopefully prevent some of these things.
Right. And I think the more people read about what happens in other accidents, hopefully they learn. And that's kind of what today's about too. Is that they say, okay, gosh, I got to be careful about this. I got to be careful about that. If I am careless on my motorcycle or on my bicycle, now I can see bicycle accidents happen or motorcycle accidents happen. So I think IONTB.com. I probably pronounce that 5 different ways now, but IONTB.com. I always say Ion Tampa Bay, but I know it's if people type that in, it may not get there.
Right. And I know when we post, we focus mostly on that the criminality aspect of it, the criminal liability purpose.
Right.
And because that's all we have, right? There was an arrest that someone maybe DUI or made a bad decision and they were arrested. We don't see the other side, and they happen simultaneously. They're not exclusive of each other. Is what you do is the the personal injury side of it, and that usually plays out as well,
right,
simultaneously. So
yes, and I think people may not realize that there is both the criminal aspect, but also the civil aspect, the injuries or the negligence that's caused by the criminal behavior as well. So
right.
I think
that's where I put out on a post earlier today is that your everyday decisions, right, could have life-changing consequences.
Right.
In many different ways.
No, I totally appreciate that. And I think you have something new on your website or Facebook, your website, and that's the streaming scanner.
Right. So I've had that for a while.
Have you? Okay.
We have a
why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about that?
So we have a streaming scanner feed. At times I open it up. I think July 4th, I opened it up so you can listen to the fire channels. I could kind of select who has access to what. There's some channels that I just, I don't give out to the general public, right? I don't want to push the envelope. A lot of agencies have gone encrypted where it affects the news media that they can't hear anything anymore. So
okay.
I'm trying to be respectful in that, if someone's in the system, I'm not going to mention certain agencies, but they actually listen, so if I have a law enforcement officer that wants it, they'll get access to certain channels. But trying to be, understanding to the needs of our law enforcement officers.
But can listeners get access to real-time scanner?
It has that ability to, they can listen to real-time scanner. They could actually go back in time and listen to things. I got a, request this morning from one of the agencies that, if they request for the county, who knows how long it takes, but they use it for training purposes. So I got a request pretty frequently from one department says, hey, we had this fire last night. Can you send us the audio? And I could just basically pick the channel, the time frame, generate it, and email it in 30 seconds or less.
Yeah, because I know there's some people that are diehard. They have their ear on the scanner all the time, wanting to know what's going on all the time. So I wish I had time to do that. I don't, but I know there are people that do have that. And I have the link being scanner at IONTB.com. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And then I have the new dispatch CAD that I developed at 911.iontb.com.
Oh, tell us about that.
You could actually see the active calls, what units are on the call, how long, what time the dispatch went out, if it's a trauma alert, what hospitals they
you were
went
talking
to,
about that last time we were here, and I did jump on that. That was pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
And that's
911.iontb.com.
Yeah. That was pretty cool. And also, I understand that you can now subscribe to IONTampaBay.com. Is that right?
I mean, there's no, when we put stories out of crashes and things like that, that's everyone has access to it. It's on Facebook,
right.
We put it on X, and then if we get more detailed information, it's a larger story, then we put it on our website at IONTB.com.
Sure.
None of that subscription based because this is consumer driven news, right? Like I've talked about before. People say, hey, what's going on here? Or, hey, here's a picture. Can you find out what's going on? I'm not going to push things that are of no interest to my followers.
Right.
They're feeding me the information. I would be nothing without them.
Right.
So it's them sending me this information. So how could I restrict it and say, hey, you have to subscribe?
Right.
That's silliness.
Right. No.
Obviously, when we talk about the scanner feeds or certain things like that, yeah, I mean that's because it has server cost associated with it, and
Sure.
other costs, and and then when we put out the right now the 91.iontv.com, that's going to be fully there as well, at no cost. But there are some features that I've pretty much came out with. I haven't rolled it out completely, or pushovers. If there's you could put in a focus by, hey, there's a crash, if there's a structure fire, if it's in this area, if this department's going, whatever filters you put in would send a pushover notification, immediately to your phone. So I don't have to listen to the scanner 24/7. I have so many alerts set up, and voice to text transcription systems that just blows my mind every day.
Well, I know in the beginning of the show I said you're going to put on your other hat, but you wear far more than just two hats. So I don't know how you have time to do all the great work that you do, but I can assure you that I'm not alone thinking that ION Tampa Bay is a great resource to us, but it's also a great resource to the community because it provides also weather information, road closures, and all kinds of other information to make people safer. So
I talked about last time giving up my secrets, but the automation of the weather alerts. I mean, all day yesterday, the day before, one goes off right now, it's out there.
Right.
It doesn't require anything on my part, drawing up the polygram and putting up this thunderstorm warning. It's all just auto posting, which is really cool. Skyway closures, skyway warnings, it's all there. And I actually rolled that into my 911 CAD yesterday. I woke up, I said, why not just roll this all into my system instead of running it on my computer at home? So it's all based, it's all cloud-based now, running up in Virginia. So if we were to lose power, it's still going. Yeah.
Well, I know it works because I was on a cruise this past week and I still had internet, and I could see on Facebook that my son, who was stayed home, was going through severe thunderstorm warnings and marine warnings and such like that. So I appreciate you from the middle of the Gulf of Mexico to getting all that information.
As you're looking at the sunshine,
saying, this is pretty good.
I'm here.
But let's move over to something that pardon the pun. Yeah. But let's move to an article that was recently on IONTB.com. And that was the article about the FDOT Road Ranger who was killed while assisting a crash scene on I-75. I think it happened on Sunday, I want to say. Yeah, I think he was killed on Sunday. And it was a Florida Department of Transportation Road Ranger got out of his car to help a disabled vehicle. And another vehicle at, I guess it was 8:28 p.m., and that'll be important in just a little bit, failed to follow the law in many respects. And he ended up striking the 24-year-old road ranger and killing him, sadly. And so there's really two laws. One, the driver was totally drunk. And so he violated that law. And at 8:28 p.m., I think, what was he, 4 times the limit?
Over 4. I was going to say, he was drunk at point, what was it, 3.4 or something? So, yeah, it was 0.344, which is 4 times.
Wow.
If that was me, I'd be on the floor just unconscious right now.
And it was at 8:28 p.m.
Time doesn't matter. It's 10 a.m.
Sunday evening, it's like, wow. But another law that he broke is what's called the move over law. And people may be familiar with the move over law, or they may think it's just courtesy to change lanes. But in fact, it is the law. The law says that it's supposed to create a buffer zone between the car and any people or cars that are on the side of the road. Stephen, can you tell our listeners what vehicles that are people required to move over?
So they changed the law a couple of years ago. It used to just be emergency vehicles.
Yeah.
And then they expanded that to, of course, emergency vehicles, right? Police, fire, ambulances.
Yeah, those are no-brainers.
Right.
Everybody knows, okay, let's get out of the way for that.
Then you got tow trucks. They have their amber lights displayed. And lights, regardless of the color, probably should tee you off.
Yeah.
Green, yellow, red, blue. Yeah, probably a good idea. It now encompasses utility workers, right? Like the other day, I'm driving up Keene, and I've got utility workers, tree trimmers. I mean, all of those vehicles that are flashing lights. It now includes sanitation workers, right? So the garbage, the sanitation trucks, maintenance of bridges, roads. Again, you're not
All of
going to
them.
say, hey, do I have to slow down for them? I mean, use common sense. Lacking a little bit these days.
True.
And then when we talk about now disabled vehicles, so if I'm driving my, I won't mention the brand of the truck, but if I
You can't drive that because of the way it's been treating you.
yeah,
know,
right.
but
So yeah, they're buying it back.
that's a whole nother
That's a
article.
whole nother thing. We won't talk about lemon
Whole
law
nother
here
show
today.
about lemon law.
Yeah, it's a long process. That's all I can tell you. So a disabled vehicle has their hazard lights on would now be part of this law. And then a disabled vehicle where there's people outside the vehicle. And that happens a lot. I'll report a pedestrian struck, and it was a horrible crash on US 19, a pedestrian struck, and everyone's like, why is a pedestrian on US 19? Well, he had gotten out of his vehicle because something fell out of his vehicle and it was struck. So you see someone stop, slow down, don't slow down to take pictures for IONTB. We don't post pictures that are obvious when people are driving or videos because I don't want to end up in court.
Right.
So we don't publish those. But yeah, and so the requirement is that you slow down 20 miles an hour below the speed limit. Or
so that means that if the speed limit's 70 miles an hour, the law requires you to slow down to 50 miles an hour
or move over.
If
you can, if it's safe to do so, right? Don't pit somebody in the process.
Right.
So that's kind of the requirement, and they're enforcing it. It's kind of tough in the courts to get the judges to go along with it. But all the stuff we're talking about is FHP, Florida Highway Patrol, state of Florida. They've been talking about a lot of grants, right? They get a lot of federal grant money. So everyone's on board now. Sheriff's Office, Largo PD. I've seen more police activity, and this grant project. Every time they do that, they could have more deputies or officers out there doing that kind of enforcement. So every time there's somebody's like, "Oh, I never see a cop on Bryan Dairy. That's why there's so many crashes." Then you have people complaining, "A cop pulled me over and did this and this." So it's both sides, and they battle it out.
Right.
And it's a lose-lose situation for law enforcement.
Yeah, and I think some people don't appreciate the move over law. I mean, we talked about if it's a multi-lane road, you have to move over or slow down to 20 miles underneath the speed limit. But if it's a 2-lane road, you're still required to slow down to a speed that is 20 miles less than the posted speed limit.
Correct.
And if the speed limit is 20 miles an hour or less,
go to 5.
You got to move down to 5 miles per hour.
Right.
And they just don't realize that. They think, oh, okay, I'm just going to probably go a little bit slower, but still speed past it and rubberneck it and see what's going on, which sometimes causes another crash.
Sure.
But what are the consequences if they fail to follow the move over law?
The consequences is, basically you're going to get a citation. It's not going to, I don't believe it's a criminal violation. It's a civil violation. It's like a speeding ticket would be.
Yeah, it starts around $150 though. $150 plus court costs is for
is that what it is?
Yeah, move over violation. And it's 3 points on your license.
So it's a moving violation.
Yeah, so they can really get you. And also you can be exposed to civil liability. If you cause injury because you did not move over, you're liable and you can be held responsible in a personal injury case. So the move over law is so important that it's one of those laws that people think they know about it, but when the time comes, they fail to abide by it.
Right. You think it's in the other lane and you just go about your business.
Yeah. So I think that's so important. And that article that was on IONTB.com really highlights how important that buffer zone, that move over law really is.
Right.
So.
And you'll see when law enforcement is behind a vehicle, they kind of tilt their vehicle at that angle. The thought is, most people don't buy it, is that they turn your wheel to the left. So if they were to get hit, the car would go out and not into them. But
in fact, I think if I recall way back in driver's ed class, I think they said when you're turning left and you're stopped at a traffic light, you should still have your wheels pointed straight until you begin your turn. Because if you get rear-ended, you could get pushed in oncoming traffic.
Yeah.
So another little secret point that people sometimes forget to do. So If you're just joining in, you are listening to FLA Law on the radio. My name is Matthew Noyes. I'm one of the attorneys at the law firm of Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes. We are one of the longest established personal injury law firms in Tampa Bay. Our main office is in Clearwater, but we have offices in St. Petersburg as well. And we can always meet you any place throughout Tampa Bay, whether it's Newport Richey, Tampa, Seminole, or whatever's most convenient for you. So we are here to help you after an injury. We are personal injury attorneys, but from 5 until 6 on every Tuesday, we are here presenting FLA Law on the radio, a live legal call-in talk show with special guests to give you more information about the law and safety and our community. And so this week I have Stephen Hirschfield here. He is the man behind Tampa Bay. And we are here to answer any questions that you have regarding the things that we're talking about or regarding something else that you wish to talk about. So again, it's 727-441-3000. You can call us and be live on the radio with us, or you can jump on our live Facebook page, which is Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes Injury Lawyers. Perenich, again, is spelled Perenich. Or you can jump on our YouTube channel as well that has the same title. So we're here to inform you of important stuff that we believe you need to know, but we are also here to listen to you and to listen to your comments. So if you have some, give us a call or shoot us an email. We're happy to address those comments. We talked about the move over law, but there's another law. It's called the super speeder law. I don't know if that's really what it's called, but that's what we call it.
Not the official, but
yeah.
Back to the move over real quick. I just want to point this out since I do a lot of boating. We may talk about boating.
Good. Yeah, we talked about this before the show.
There is a similar move over for boaters. You'll find that out if you blow by a sheriff's office, Marine unit, or Coast Guard or FWC. If they have their lights activated and they're working with another boat, you need to slow down to pretty much minimum no wake if you're within 300 feet.
Okay.
And that also is for, I was out this weekend in horrible storm in Anklet River, and there was 2 sea tow vessels towing boats. That would apply to them as well.
Okay.
You don't want to try to not pay attention and cut the ropes, or if there's a rescue going on, someone gets thrown into the water, you have some serious liability for that as well. So
now the move over law for vehicles had to do with disabled vehicles also. Does the move over law for boating have to do if it's a disabled
it pretty much focuses on towing operations, barges, construction barges, and law enforcement, Coast Guard, firefighting vessels, lights activated.
That's
but
important.
You're still ultimately responsible for your wake. You are responsible, and you're responsible for your passengers as well. We can talk more about boating later, but you're ultimately responsible for your wake, everything you do. So, but it doesn't important. Not for a broken down vessel.
Okay, I think that's very important, and I didn't know that till about 5 minutes before the show. So Stephen, thank you for that information as well. I think that's important, especially down here. I know my sister was out scalloping last weekend. I think you said
I went out Friday. Yep. Day one of scalloping.
I know she was out there doing it. I didn't get a report of how well she did, but I know there's a lot of boats out there.
There's a lot of boats. I did drone video photos. I haven't had time to post anything yet, but yeah, it was more boats than scallops.
Wow.
We got our limit, but it was a lot of work, and that was day one. So it's not going to be a great scallop season, at least in the Pasco area. I don't know how it is in Hernando.
Yeah. Wow. So it's a very important. We are going to, if we have time, we're going to talk more about boating safety, because that is so important, because we see so many boating accidents, so many people injured because of the negligence of a boat operator. So we're going to stay tuned within the next half hour. I think we're going to be able to talk about that as well. But I did want to talk about the super speeder law, because I think that's important. And that's a new law that became in effect on July 1st, 2025.
Correct.
So it's been around for about a year now. Stephen, can you tell our listeners a little bit about what the super speeder law is?
Yep. So the super speeder law is, so when you get pulled over for speeding, it's a civil infraction. And in July 1st of 2025, they basically made it's now a criminal violation and arrestable, and they will arrest you. So if you're going 50 miles or more over this posted speed limit,
which is crazy to me, but yes.
and I read the arrest affidavits every morning of people that got arrested the previous day. It's every day.
Really?
Yeah. And FHP posts a lot of their stuff. I mean, it's 133, 136, 10. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Wow.
Or so 50 miles an hour or over
over the speed limit.
Over the posted speed limit.
Okay.
Or at 100 miles an hour in a manner that threatens the safety of others.
Well, I think anybody driving 100 miles an hour
so if you're
threatens
60,
the safety.
if you're 65 in the interstate and you're doing 100, well, 65 would be 105, right? So, you're doing 110, yeah, you have to be driving. It's that gray area, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's too gray to me, but I may be in the minority.
Well, I mean, if you're driving 100 miles an hour and you're in the left lane, you're doing, if it's 65, if my math's right, you're doing 35 over.
Right.
And you're driving in the fast lane, no traffic around you, not arrestable. You'll get a ticket.
You'll get a ticket, yeah.
But you're not going to end up in jail.
Okay.
So you're looking at that first conviction, you're looking at 30 days in jail and up to a $500 fine. If you do it again, you're looking at 90 days in jail, up to $1,000 fine, and you're looking at a revocation between 6 months and 1 year of your driver's license.
Yeah.
And they're enforcing it. It's crazy.
And they should. I mean, to me, my daughter will tease me that I drive like the old man that I am, but she'll tease me that I drive slowly. I call it cautiously, but I would think that anyone driving 100 miles an hour or more, even on the interstate, is asking for trouble if there's a blowout, if another car changes lanes. You just don't have the reaction time's just not the same
for you or the person that you make impact.
Exactly.
On.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to talk about left turns.
Yeah.
But and some people think I talked to you earlier about this. When they talk about damage from impacts, to the person, to the vehicle, to trees, to structures, it has to do with the kinetic energy, right? The energy of that moving vehicle or an e-bike, which are heavier than regular bikes. It's that energy. And you have two things that make up the kinetic energy. One is the weight of the vehicle. That doesn't change based upon your speed, right? We know that a bigger truck is going to cause more damage at the same speed than a littler vehicle. But the other is the speed. So if you look at a vehicle that's doing 80 versus a vehicle doing 40, common sense tells you it's going to be twice the amount of kinetic energy. But common sense is wrong because it has to do with the square of the change in speed. So somebody who's doing 80 is going to have 4 times, not twice, 4 times the kinetic energy as someone who's doing 40 miles an hour. And that's one of the reasons of doing the super speeder law. You have someone who's doing 100 miles an hour. I mean, you've seen these crashes. I mean, I've seen vehicles cut in half. Motorcyclists, I think we're going to talk about that. The damage to that car from that motorcycle is catastrophic.
Right. That was crazy.
When you see it hit a huge vehicle and that vehicle's just halfway there,
right?
It's a very high speed. So it isn't just, he's going twice the speed. It's really 4 times the amount of force that when it hits something or a person. And that's why these things are so deadly, these crashes.
And I think a good analogy that we sometimes make in front of the jury is kind of like a pool table. You're playing pool. If you hit the cue balls heavier than all the other balls, and if you just slightly hit the cue ball, it may make some contact with I'm going to say the 8 ball. Right. It hits the 8 ball. But if you really hit the cue ball harder, you can see how that 8 ball shoots forward. Right. And that's that kinetic energy that you're talking about, right?
Yeah. And I said I don't want to talk about e-bikes. We belabor the point, but e-bikes weigh a lot more than other bikes.
Right.
So part of that is, the weight of those bikes are, it's not the speed that kills you. It's the reduction in speed that kills you.
Right.
Right. It's going from 50 to 0 is the problem.
Like that. Yeah.
Correct. Is you got that kinetic energy is got to be dissipated. And the other thing is not only is it maybe 4 times the amount of kinetic energy, but it's now 4 times the braking distance.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you're going twice the speed, it's going to take you 4 times as long
to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could say, okay,
as is going the speed limit.
If I'm going 40 miles an hour, I'm just going to guess 40 feet to stop. I know
Right.
it's probably far more than that, but it's 40 feet. But if you're going 80, you would think, okay, I need 80 feet to stop. But science doesn't say that.
No, and it just right now I'm just thinking. I remember there was I'm so bad with time. As you get older, maybe it's 2 years ago, maybe it's 3 years ago. It was a Tesla Model S Plaid, right? 0 to 60 in 1.9. Okay, so on a residential street, guy decided to show his buddies, look how fast this car is.
Right.
Well, 0 to 60 1.9, but now he didn't realize he needed to slow down, and he went off the end of the street, went airborne into a house.
Wow.
So it's just you've got to factor that in as well.
Right. So speeding was always punishable by a traffic violation. This law just says, okay, if you're over the top, it's also criminal now.
And
It's
you're
really
getting,
what
and
this
you're
law
getting a
makes.
ride to the jail.
And you get a ride to the jail.
Correct.
Yeah. So your first conviction is 30 days in jail. Your
Up to.
yeah,
I haven't
up
really
to.
followed to see what they're
Yeah,
really
that's a good
doing. You
question.
sit in. Yeah.
Come on, you got nothing to do. Find
I
out what's going
know.
on.
It's like this one's assigned lasers and helicopters. I'm like, you look, it gets $100,000 and 5 years in jail. It's mostly a slap on the wrist. It's like, I don't know.
So I think super speeder law is something important as well. I'm hoping that our listeners don't have to worry about the super speeder law because they're careful drivers. We preach to them every week about the importance of driving safely. And so I hope they never have to worry about the super speeder law. But our discussion about kinetic energy is very important to our listeners because they could be the safest drivers in the world, just like many of my clients are the safest drivers in the world. But they don't get hurt because of their safe driving.
Right.
They get hurt because of somebody else's careless driving. And so I think our listeners need to know about the super speeder law to appreciate the magnitude of injury they could have when somebody is going way over the speed limit.
How does that play into, as a personal injury attorney, you could go and look at someone's driving record, correct?
Right.
How does that play into a case that you
Yeah.
may have against that person?
Typically in the civil arena,
Yes.
you're not allowed to talk about driver's records.
Okay.
It's inadmissible because their bad actions aren't supposed to dictate how their actions were
With that
at that
incident.
time.
Okay.
And a good defense attorney, I would always like to talk about how fast they were going and how reckless they were. But a good defense attorney will say, Judge, we admit to liability. And so we're not going to talk about all those facts about the accident. We're just going to say that our client caused the crash. My argument as a plaintiff's lawyer is always, well, they need to know the magnitude of the crash. They need to know how fast the car was going, and not just showing the photos, but you need to also know the impact of the magnitude of the impact because of the kinetic energy that we're talking about. And so there is a way to still get that evidence into the jury's
Well, a
mindset.
lot of times if it's a criminal case, you have the quote black box, right?
Right.
And they could say doing 136 at the time of impact, or and whether they hit the brakes or not. That's not admissible.
That's
at times?
not admissible if they admit to liability. If they admit to liability, you don't get to talk about that unless you're able to allege punitive damages. Many times, most of the times in civil case, you're not allowed to allege punitive damages. You have to have a separate evidentiary hearing in order to bring in a claim.
Complicated.
It is, but if you can do that and you can bring in punitive damages, then the jury can hear.
For a punitive aspect.
It can hear all those facts. Now, the insurance company doesn't have to pay for any jury award that's for punitive damages, but you can always dismiss the punitive damage claim right after your closing argument. And so the jury was able to hear that,
Right.
and take that into consideration. So there are ways to get that in from a civil
A lot of
civil
legalese.
standpoint. It is a lot of
legalese.
legalese. Hopefully, our listeners don't have to worry about that. But if they do, it's important to talk to an attorney, whether it's our firm or whether it's another firm, about talking about what their rights are and what options do they have. Too many times in our cases, someone says, "Oh, well, they said we looked and there wasn't any insurance involved, and it was just the driver." Well, the owner has insurance, and so you can still bring the claim against the owner. So it's so important after a crash.
Just not a rental car.
Well, a rental car, no, but up to $10,000. But that's not something that they're really required to do, but that's what they do provide. But it's so important to talk to an attorney after you're involved in a crash. We give free consultations. I think every personal injury attorney gives free consultations. So whether it's us or whether it's somebody else, I think it's so important that if after you're involved in a crash, whether it's from somebody going 100 miles an hour or somebody going 20 miles an hour, it's still important to talk to an attorney to understand what your rights are. So we got about 19 minutes left. If you're just jumping in, that is Stephen Hirschfield. He is the man behind ION Tampa Bay, or IOTB.com. I am Matthew Noyes, one of the partners at the law firm of Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes. We are one of the first personal injury law firms in Tampa Bay, and you are listening to FLA Law on the radio, a show that we proudly present as a service to the community to share information that about our areas of law and other areas that we feel are very helpful and informative to our listeners. So we thank you for listening to the show right now, but we also welcome you to if you feel like you missed a portion of it, you want to get back on, say, oh, said that they talked about that last week, jump on your favorite podcast platform, and we post all our shows on Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, and all the other podcast platforms. Jump on it and see what Stephen talked about the last time he was here. And so when he's here in about 8 weeks from now, I'll get him to come again in about 8 weeks. We can quiz him on what he talked about 4 months ago and see how he remains consistent with what we're talking about.
And the end of hurricane season.
At the end of hurricane season. Yeah, he'll be too busy during hurricane season. God forbid we have a storm that comes. But let's talk about another article that was on ION Tampa Bay, and that was that motorcyclist that was killed on State Road 54 in Pasco County. I think this happened on Sunday too, if I read it correctly. A 20-year-old Tampa man was killed Saturday afternoon after his motorcycle collided with an SUV at an intersection on State Road 54. Apparently, it was at 3:10 in the afternoon. The trooper said that the Tampa man was driving his Kawasaki westbound on 54 at a high rate of speed. At the same time, a 53-year-old Newport Richey man was driving a Chevy Suburban eastbound. As the Suburban turned left onto Players Drive, it entered the path of the oncoming motorcycle. The motorcycle struck the SUV, causing the rider to suffer critical injuries and later died in the hospital. But as Stephen was talking about, those photos that were on IONTampaBay.com and on Facebook were horrific. I mean, that the property damage that was done to that Suburban,
Right.
which is a tank to begin with.
Yes.
The property damage that was done by that motorcyclist just supports what we were just talking about. The speed of that motorcycle can cause significant property damage.
Right. But that's one of the, every time we do that, it's always assumed, somebody turned left in front of a motorcycle, and that's what happened. But there's also a myth that it's always the person's fault that made the left turn.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of things that come into play, right? And one is when we talk about high speed.
Right.
Because it makes a difference. To travel 300 feet at 45 miles an hour is about 4.5 seconds. If that motorcycle is doing 90, it's about 2.3 seconds. So you got to look at it from the point of view of the person making a left. Ultimately, it's their responsibility to make sure they have clearance to get through that intersection.
But
as a reasonable thought process,
Yeah.
you're not going to assume the person's doing 120.
Right.
So, yeah, that's what it comes down. I'm sure you hear this
you
all
see
the time.
we see it often. You see, the
takes two to tango as well. So
yeah, they say that they assume that the vehicle that was approaching them was driving the speed limit,
or
and so
close to it,
and they thought they had ample time, but they were driving twice the speed limit, or sometimes more than that, and so the time to turn is far far reduced.
Right. And then you look at, did it hit the front of the Suburban? In this case, it hit the back. So the person was almost through the intersection.
Right.
So they were, if they hit the front, they say, well, you didn't even clear the length of your vehicle. So, they slammed into the back.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I was surprised to when I was researching it, 22% of all motor vehicle crashes involve a vehicle turning left. Doesn't mean always the left hand, like you said.
Yeah.
It's not always the left-hand turn driver causing the crash, but 22% of all crashes occur from somebody turning left.
Right.
I had a car accident when I was 16 years old. It was a pretty significant car accident. And now it was at a traffic light, but my light turned green and I was turning left. And a Cadillac was driving on 19, ran the red light and smashed right into to my vehicle that I was driving. And those T-bone collisions are sometimes worse, more serious injuries because there's less structural protection on the side of the vehicles. Now they have side airbags, but that still doesn't give the protection that I think the passengers, the occupants of the vehicles need.
Right. So the front of the vehicle is made to just collapse,
right,
and absorb that kinetic energy, The sides, obviously, you just have a door. I mean, you could put A-frames and.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are you going to do?
It still doesn't give the protection.
And that's like that horrible crash last night in Seminole. I don't know if you saw that one.
Yeah, how did you tell our listeners about that?
It was an 85-year-old driver in a PT Cruiser, and 20-year-old, I believe they said son, but I don't know. It could be at 60 have a kid, but I don't know. It could be a grandson. I'm not sure. And it was getting ready to rain. It was right before the thunderstorms last night. And basically he made a left in front of a vehicle and basically hit square on the passenger side, which is where the son was. He's on life support, and the 85-year-old driver passed away. So yeah, very sad. So, it happens. It's not only just motorcycles, right? It happens with motorcycles a little more because they're harder to see, right? They're smaller, and what's the person gonna say? He came out of nowhere. I didn't see him.
Right.
When it happens with a car, it's a little more visible, but you still, that speed is really a problem. So, or they, thought they had plenty of time, or that stupid little thing on your car that turns your motor off when you stop, and that hesitation. I'm not a fan of that.
I'm not either.
No, you got to hit the little button every time to tell it not to stop. So
no, but I mean, it's so important. In fact, my mom, when she was alive, she tried to avoid left turns as much as she could. She always would turn right until she got to where she needed to go. But left turn is dangerous. It's just that's why you see some roads, like when 19 was being redone. They took away all the left turn
down
lanes.
Southern part, northern part still somewhat.
Yeah, no, they took it from Countryside Mall all the way up to Tampa Road. They eliminated all the
Tampa Road,
the left turns. Yeah, up further there.
Going to New Jersey years ago, it's like, dude, you got to exit. There's no turns, even in residential areas, just no lefts.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, but that also brings up something that Mr. Caulfield and I talked about last week, and that was the change in the law about comparative negligence. In a civil case, you're allowed to bring a lawsuit even if you were partially at fault for the crash. If the at-fault driver was 80% responsible for the injuries, they have to pay 80% of the damages.
Right.
But the law changed, and now we have modified comparative negligence. And so now, if the plaintiff is more than 50% at fault, if he's 51% at fault, you would think that the other person should pay 49% of the damages, and you get nothing now. It's just an injustice. I mean, pay what you're required to pay, but nothing more, but nothing less. So the comparative negligence before March of 2023 made sense. I get compensated for the injuries that somebody else caused, but I don't get compensated for the injuries that my comparative negligence may have caused. But now, same accident, if you were deemed 51% at fault, then you would get zero, even though the other person was 49% at fault.
So a jury determines that?
Yeah, jury determines the apportionment of the negligence.
Do they do the 51 just to put the just because, or a lot of times they say it's 50-50? I mean, what do you see typically?
We see a lot of 50-50s.
So then you get 50-50.
Then you would be entitled
so if it's 50
to
or below, you get that percentage.
Right.
If it's over 50, you're done.
Yeah, like we have seen in our slip and fall cases. I mean, juries, slip and fall cases are tough. People are shopping at, I'm not going to say the store, let's say Wall Target, and they slip it on a wet substance on the floor.
Right.
Well, juries, I think it's through the insurance companies and the commercials and all that, are convinced that people should have been looking where they're going.
Right.
And so they fell.
And the store wasn't notified.
And the store didn't have time to
find
one thing
if they were notified.
Right.
Yes.
And so oftentimes in a slip and fall or premise liability case, there's more negligence attributed to the injured party. Well, if they do 55% and 45% on Wall Target, then the establishment doesn't have to pay anything for that puddle that was on the ground. So I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair.
But it also affects what cases a personal injury attorney may take on.
Exactly.
You may not be able to get representation.
100%. Yeah, I think that closes the door a lot on a lot of the cases having to do with comparative negligence. It's so hard to prove.
And that was what, 2023 or something?
Yeah, that was just last year.
2025.
Yeah.
Oh, really recent.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. 2023.
2023.
It felt like it was last year because it's been painful.
Now it's a modified.
Yeah, now it's modified comparative negligence.
So,
listeners, we have about 8 more minutes. We are going to talk about boating safety and liability because I think that's a very important to talk about. But in the meantime, if you have a question regarding what we're talking about, give us a call, 727-441-3000. That's Stephen Hirschfield. He is the man behind ION Tampa Bay, or IONTB.com. And I am Matthew Noyes, one of the partners at the law firm of Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes, the proud sponsors of FLALAW on the radio every Tuesday live from 5 until 6. So, Stephen, let's talk about boating safety. We kind of touched about it.
Can I derail real quick?
Do what?
Can I derail this?
Let's derail it. This is
topics,
fun.
Right?
Yeah, let's go.
So every year we hear about kids left in cars.
Yes.
And we just had another tragic case. We've had 4 in Florida already. We have 10 in the United States of kids left in the car. We had a horrible case. I think it was June 22nd in Riverview. A 3-year-old was left in the car. Police got called to the house at like 10:30 at night. So you can imagine how long the kid was in the car.
Oh, my goodness.
If you have kids, just put your purse on the back seat. You know,
That's
take the kid's stuffed animal, put the stuffed animal in your lap. There's things you could buy, in your app, that would notify you if you leave your car. It's hard. People can't comprehend, how does this happen, right? How do you leave your kid? It's not always the parent. Could be a babysitter. In one case, it was a babysitter. In another case, it was a caretaker. And that was, do you charge the parents, and how does that work?
Right.
If it's a babysitter or caregiver, are they held, personal injury going to take? Dude, it's awful.
It's awful. And the adult, the driver, the agony that they must go through, the remorse, the pain that they must go through, knowing that their inattentiveness resulted in the death of a child, which is, I can't imagine a parent going through that. So I'm glad we talked about that.
It was just timely and
I think
put something with it. I hate to make this analogy, but go over to someone's house with leftover dinner, put it in their fridge. I put my car keys with it, right? Put your purse in the back seat, so you have to go to the back seat. Put something there that you need, right? Put your cell phone there. That way you're not texting and driving.
I think that's a great
your phone's in next to the kid. So you've got to come up with something. This is just, it's mind-boggling how this happens.
I am not surprised, but my son's truck has a little, when you open up the door to turn off the car, it always says, check back seat for occupants, which I think is a great idea.
Right.
I tease him because he doesn't have any kids, but it's still important that at least there's a little reminder there. But
I mean, the manufacturers are trying, right? There's been no law, but there is for child care facilities and vehicles, but they're trying to limit their liability as well.
Right.
And there is some technology that if you open the door and then start the car, it knows that door was open. There may be somebody in there. It'll give you a reminder. So there's certain things that are doing that.
But I think you made a great suggestion, and that is your purse. Put it in the back seat, so you need to get it out. Cell phone's an excellent example.
And there's devices they sell, online. It goes on the clips, and it'll notify you when you get a certain distance away, just like your AirTag does.
Yeah.
So there's things out there. It's just some people think, how does it happen? It can never happen to me.
Yeah.
Well, it happens, and it's happened.
These people thought the same thing.
I think it's 1,300 kids in the last 20 years. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And then the story of,
so far
from a liability perspective, the story the other day in Kissimmee, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old were in a car. They were moving into to stay for the while. The 4-year-old picked up a gun and shot his 2-year-old brother and killed him. So
I saw that. That's
another one. How, who do you charge?
Right.
Everyone they want justice, right?
Yeah.
Do you charge now a parent who did that and
who left the gun
firearm
out.
Safety, right? Put locks on it, safety. You've got to be aware of all that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And you've seen some of the national examples where the parents are starting to be charged for their children's
behavior,
behavior or shooting and such like that. Even the going totally off on subject.
We like going off topic.
When they had those teen
takeovers,
riots,
teen takeovers. I would say, I don't know
some
where takeover came from.
Some of the parents are being held responsible for that, and I think they should.
We'll see how that plays out in the justice system. It sounds good on paper. It's kind of like price gouging for hurricanes. I was going to ask the Attorney General, show me a case where you successfully prosecuted someone for price gouging before a hurricane. They're always sitting up there, we're going to do this and we're going to do this. I don't think.
But if it deters somebody, that may have done
then it
works.
Trick.
Then it worked. and I think some of that is what for the parents threatening to bring action against the parents. I think that's more of a deterrence than a really effective law. But I think that's still very, very important to know. And you're right. Children left in hot vehicles. I mean, I left my office on the way down to the studio, and it was 104 degrees in my car, and I had a sunshade on my car.
Yeah.
So
my wife's car. Looked the other day to see where she was in the app. 137 in the car.
Holy mackerel! And
137.
And it's so sad when a child can die.
Or a pet. If I don't say pet, I'm going to get criticism.
Yeah.
I'm going to get emails and say, why did you talk about pets? So same thing with pets.
I think the same thing is with pet. And I think there's a law, and maybe for the children as well.
There is.
That you can break a window in order to save a pet.
It has to be imminent danger.
Yeah.
The car has to be pretty much off, right? Because there's like the Teslas and some of the EVs will say, I'm safe. It's 74 degrees in here.
Yeah.
So don't break a window when there's a big display saying Fido's okay.
Yeah.
Right? I always joke with my wife in the car. I'm like, I'm going to put you on spouse mode. Leave her in the car. And you have to notify 911 before or immediately thereafter if you can't wait. Okay. And then it releases you from civil liability. Also, you can't break all the windows. You have to do minimal damage to break a window.
I think that's important.
Usually those back corner ones are the cheapest to replace.
To replace.
Unless you're in the windshield business, he's busted out. But so they did pass that about 5 years ago that you can't actually
I think that's
break in. So we'll talk about boarding next time. We talked about it a little bit last time.
Yeah, but why don't you let listeners know how they can get more information from you?
Well, I'm at IONTB.com. You can send an email to news@IONTB.com or Steven with a V at IONTB.com. I'm always awake 24/7 and never sleep.
That's true.
Always working for you guys. So appreciate all my listeners. And thank you again for having me on this three-peat. I don't know what the fourth time will be called.
We'll see. We'll find out. We'll find out in 2 months. I am Matthew Noyes. Thank you for listening. And as I always say, drive safely and watch out for those who don't. We'll see you next week.